Shivanji Africa, welcome to Bitesize Democracy, a weekly show focusing on issues around democracy on the African continent. Our show gives you a snapshot of what's happening on the continent in fun, informative bite-sized segments. On today's show, my co-host is MK. Welcome to the show, MK.
Thank you for having me.
Please do speak to us. Our hashtag is #BSDemocracy, and please do subscribe to our YouTube channel, the African Democratic Institute. Today, as promised, we're going to do an overview and look back at the elections that have happened. Today, we're focusing on Zambia and Gabon. As we're all aware, Gabon had an election on the 27th of August, and there's been a lot of dispute and a lot of things have been happening in this election. Zambia as well also had an election on the 11th of August. They're kind of facing a similar situation. MK, can you just brief us as to what's happening, starting with Zambia?
Okay, so what happened in Zambia? Well, as we discussed previously, the opposition leader, Hichilema, had filed to the Constitution Court just to say there were irregularities with the election, they don't accept the results, and the formality with that is the Constitutional Court gives you about 2 weeks for you to produce evidence. So they failed to produce the evidence, so now that has been thrown out of the court. So the inauguration is going ahead.
Okay, so would you say, so what you're saying is there really is no constitutional crisis in Zambia because the opposition could not produce the evidence of the rigging and on all the irregularities that they were saying were happening?
Well, it's the same thing almost across the board with every African country. You can tell the integrity of the Electoral Commission, of the Constitution Court itself has been brought to question, but it's really hard because all this is controlled by the incumbent. The appointments of the Constitution Court and then the delays and the chairman of the commission, the Electoral Commission. So really opposition has little power to maneuver when it comes to getting real change and producing evidence. So even though there are irregularities, which we all discussed in the previous episodes, there is nothing they can do about that.
Okay, so these organizations like SADC, how is SADC intervening in this? Do they have authority to directly intervene in what's happening in Zambia?
They do, but it's sort of just diplomatic authority. And so, for instance, in the Gabon election, the AU said that there should be a recount, one of the AU diplomats, but they were ignored. That call was ignored. So even if they do, they don't have mechanisms to institute change or to call for a rerun or to nullify the election.
That's actually very disheartening. And we move on to Gabon. As you know, they had an election on the 27th of August. And I think 2 days later, or a couple of days later, Jean Ping, one of the opposition party members, prematurely announced that he'd won the election. What were the implications of his announcement?
Well, it's funny because even in 2009, the opposition leader, well, before the turmoil broke out again, he announced himself as the winner, and then they had to go to some sort of a conflict war for a period with the current incumbent. So it's precedented. I guess what he was trying to do is to say, give people the hope that we can win as opposition. The dynasty, which is adding to about 50 years, going on more than half a century now. So that's what he was trying to do. The implications are just to try and nudge the people's thinking, so the opposition can actually win, and secondly, just to get the government at least on the edge of the seat. But well, it doesn't work in a dynasty like Gabon.
Yeah, clearly it didn't work. And, the election results actually took a while before they were announced. Is there any provisions in the Constitution of Gabon as to that stipulates, election results should be announced by 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 3 months? Is there anything like that? Is there anything that clearly states?
Yeah, they say they should be out in a fortnight, but the issue was, because of the they call them irregularities again. So there was a problem with one of the provinces where the president comes from. And then when the results came out in that particular province, the incumbent won with about 99.9%.
Wow.
So if you look at that compared to the overall national result, which won with about 59%. So it really doesn't make sense. So those were irregularities that came with that election, and eventually people will question the credibility.
Again, coming back to institution, the African Union, what kind of authority do they have? I know there's issues of sovereignty and all that. How can the African Union intervene? I know right now the president, Bongo, has won the election by the skin of his tooth.
Yeah.
So how can the African Union, because now the parliament was burned, there's now violence, there's a lot of, unrest in Gabon. How can the African Union intervene at this point?
Well, at this point, the first and most important thing is to protect civilians. I know there are also French nationals who are missing, unaccounted for at this particular point. Yes, the first thing is to negotiate for peace, and then the second thing is to try and get an agreement between the incumbent and the opposition, because when this continues, then people are going to die, and then there will be violence, etc. So the most important thing is to get, which is normally what the AU does, get someone to negotiate a Thabo Mbeki, maybe Obasanjo even, bring the parties down, negotiate, reach a peace deal, and then go towards the process of democratizing the country.
Okay. Thank you so much for your insight, NK. Thank you so much, Africa, for watching. Join us again next week on Bitesize Democracy, your one-stop shop for everything that's happening on the African continent. Bye, Africa.